quick decision-making and nerves of steel are required now on BBC2. No wonder Margaret Thatcher was nicknamed the Iron Lady.
Here in the Crisis Command Centre, 3 people who've never met will be put in an extraordinary position of power as they take over the reins of government and run this country during a simulated national emergency. They have volunteered to be ministers, and tonight they will discover if they've got what it takes to survive at the very top. They are business consultant Cesarina Home-Kandar.
We have 100 people who are about to be killed and a nuclear device about to go off. Ask me where my morals sit. But, I would happily torture the 17.
No, but hold on.
Litigation lawyer Razi Mirez-Kandari.
That's just the wrong way of putting it. It's not my gift. Well, if they're going to choose to assassinate people, we have to deal with that problem.
And Brian Rice, chairman of Dial-A-Cab.
That man could be dead in half an hour's time. And you've done nothing, you let him bleed to death on the pavement.
The ministers will not be alone in making their decisions. Helping them will be 3 genuine experts with real-life experience of crisis management. They are Sir Tim Garden, military advisor; Amanda Platell, communications expert; and Charles Shoebridge, emergency services specialist. You can make your own decisions at home. And if you have a digital television, press red now to see if you can make better decisions than the ministers here in the Crisis Command Centre. We have a national emergency, and it's about to begin. Ministers, you've been brought here today because we have a potential crisis on our hands. Police are reporting a serious incident involving armed gunmen taking over a London hotel in the Hyde Park area. And I'd like to show you at once what one of the news channels is reporting.
Our top story this morning, gunmen have taken over a hotel in central London. A little under 2 hours ago, the group, it's not yet known who they are, burst into the Shaftesbury Park Hotel just off Park Lane.
There are reports that shots were fired, but there's no word yet of any casualties. Armed police have sealed off the area and a major security operation is underway.
There has been a further development at the hotel. I'd like to take you down to the forward control point and the commander there, who's in charge of the inner cordon.
One of the hotel doormen has just tried to make an escape. He was shot at and injured, but he's managed to crawl to a position of cover. Now, he's clearly badly injured, but we can't get to him safely. The best thing would be to use armoured Land Rovers, but they're stuck in traffic. But we do have some armoured shields, or we have 2 paramedics who are willing to go in unarmed under a white flag.
Ministers, you obviously have to take a decision here. What do we know? We know that there is a man down. He seems to be badly injured. And the question for you is this: would you like to send in police to try and rescue this man? Would you like to send in paramedic volunteers to help get this man out? Or would you like to wait for armoured Land Rovers to arrive who might be able to do this more effectively? With each dilemma the ministers face, they must choose the correct option as determined by a team of professional crisis managers. They can call on their advisors at any time.
Could there be a particular reason why that hotel's been targeted? Could there be more to it than a simple robbery? And if there is, that might shape our response. Are there any kind of VIPs or politicians staying there?
We need to know if there's been any demands made. Rather than who's staying there, we need to know what demands. Has there been any contact made with the hostage takers, with the terrorists? Can we let them know that we want to send somebody in to remove the person that's been shot?
We have control of the landlines to the hotel, but no contact has been established so far. So, for whatever reason, Minister, they simply aren't communicating at the current time. That's right.
How quickly can we get military people in there to get the injured man out?
Your military man is Tim Garden.
Minister, we have put in hand the normal contingency plan. The SAS left Hereford as soon as we heard about the situation. They'll be here within the hour. If we can get some information from this chap and send in the police to get him out, that would be really very helpful to the military option.
I don't even want to send in the police at this moment in time because we just could exacerbate the situation. And I'd be all for favour of putting the loud-hailers on, sending in unarmed paramedics to remove the man from the premises.
I think that without dialogue with the hostage takers, it would be really inappropriate to send in paramedic volunteers.
I think we have to wait. We have no contact. We can't run the risk of other people.
If you wait for them, that man could be dead. And by the very presence of them going...
I'm prepared to take that risk.
Ministers, I must just interrupt here for one moment. This is being sent out, beamed out across the country and across the world, that a man is down in the centre of London, and we, the British government, are doing nothing to save him. We always attempt a rescue.
But with all due respect,
I'm prepared to take that
we're
risk
not
still.
suggesting leaving them to die. We're suggesting waiting until we have
Half an hour, he could well be dead, Minister.
Half an hour, he
that.
could be
Bring him
dead.
in.
You must bring that man in.
But
You must
equally,
make some effort to bring that man in. And you must be seen to be making an effort to bring that man in. You cannot have these pictures going out live and we leave a man bleeding to death on the pavement.
But just think for a moment of the scenario that could follow that. You could
Yes, the man could die.
Please. You could send in the volunteer, and the same people that shot the guy trying to escape could shoot the volunteer. And then instead of newsreel showing one chap lying there dying, we might potentially end up with newsreel showing 3 or 4.
Absolutely, and then you send in the police vehicles in half an hour's time, and when they see the police vehicles approaching, they think the hotel is being stormed, they could shoot all the hostages in there. Then you'll have the deaths of everybody on your hand. You must try to get that man out. We're sitting in here doing nothing because you want to wait half an hour for the police to
But your
attend.
solution,
And even
your
when the
solution won't
police
work, Brian.
attend,
If you
with
send in other
high-velocity
people,
bullets, they
Brian,
can take the police out
if
as
you
well.
send in other people and they kill the other people, incompetence will be shown to the public.
No,
out
it won't
there.
be competence.
You need to make decisions
Absolutely
that are
not.
cold and calculated, and not
Absolutely.
worried about
Reputations.
about reputations.
Absolutely. It's a question of priorities. My priority is, and if we have to invoke the lesser evil for the greater good to achieve it, my priority is minimising casualties there rather than preserving a reputation.
It's not preserving a reputation. By waiting half an hour for the police to attend, they're in there with high-velocity weapons.
They will not shoot
Just
somebody
let
else?
me finish. They're in there with high-velocity weapons.
Why would they not shoot somebody else?
It's a very valid
Well,
question.
of course, why wouldn't they shoot? But if the police attend, they will think they're being stormed. They will open up with automatic
I don't
weapons.
care about that.
Properly take. You don't care.
I don't care if they
about
think,
the hostages.
I don't know. I never said that. I don't care if they think that police are attending because we're in a hostile situation with people
They think
shooting
the
at
hotel
British
is being
people.
rushed.
Ministers, you are effectively running the country at the moment. What do you think is the right thing to do here?
I think the best scenario out of a set of poor choices is to wait for the Land Rovers.
You want to wait for the armoured Land Rovers, Minister?
I want loud hailers to tell the terrorists that we are sending in unarmed paramedics to remove the body.
You want to send in the paramedics, OK?
Yes.
Minister?
I want the Land Rovers in as soon as possible.
Right, so your decision effectively is to wait for these armoured Land Rovers to come. Minister, we don't have very much time here. We will work on a majority decision. Is there anything you can say very, very quickly to persuade your ministers that you're right and they're not right in this respect?
I think they're adamant on the situation, but unfortunately, I think if these hostage takers see the police approaching the building, I think they will think they were being stormed. They'll probably shoot back and they'll probably take some more hostage lives in this situation, and that man could be dead in half an hour's time. And you've done nothing. You let him bleed to death on the
What's
pavement.
your view on that?
My view is potentially he might die on the pavement. I'm also very concerned if we send in 2 unarmed volunteers that they will die.
I think we should do our best to tell them that's the reason we're going in.
All right, ministers, your decision will be enacted, and that we'll wait for those armoured Land Rovers to come. According to professional crisis managers, waiting for the armoured Land Rovers is the right answer. If the hostage takers are given a chance to shoot at inadequately protected rescuers, they too could be wounded or killed. The main priority at this stage should be to minimise casualties, not to create more of them. The ministers have got their first decision right. Back on the ground, events are continuing to develop. As there has been no contact from inside the hotel, the police decide to cut the mains power to encourage a response from the hostage takers. It has an immediate effect.
Hello, my name is George. Who am I speaking to?
My name is Azhar, and I speak for Azadi Ke Sipahi. We have an atomic device in another location which will be detonated if we are attacked. Today, in London, our people and our homeland are once again to be sacrificed to the terror machine of India, a situation we can no longer tolerate.
Can you tell us any more about the bomb?
Only that it is an atomic device, and that it is not at this location. These are our demands. 1, that India withdraws its armed forces from Kashmir. 2, that a referendum be held on the future of our country. And 3, that all Kashmiri freedom fighters be released from British and Indian prisons.
Okay. Can I just ask you a question about the people you're holding in there?
We must have some answers within 1 hour.
We know there are children, and people usually let them go in this situation. It looks good to...
Stop wasting time! You have 1 hour, that is all.
We now know that that hotel is in the hands of terrorists. I think it's pretty clear from the way they were communicating that they don't have a high regard for human life. But, you know, so we now need to operate on a kind of scenario of, you know, cry tally ho and let's slip the dogs of war.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. It's easy to say that terrorists are always assassins, but they've got a political agenda and they're not necessarily murderers in that simplistic sense.
We do know, with all due respect, they've already shot someone,
I understand that. But can we have any background on the situation, the political situation, the Kashmir, India? What's the position? Is there any useful information we can glean from that?
There's a series of groups who over the years have done terrorist attacks to promote their Kashmir independence or their Kashmir pro-Pakistan cause.
Let me just put one thing to you. Can I just ask, if there is an atomic device and if it goes off, what's the potential scale and damage and impact of that?
If it's a dirty bomb, that is explosive with radioactive material around it, then the radius of destruction is about the same as normal explosive, perhaps up to a mile. The material, depending on what it is then taken downwind and contaminates a large area. At worst, this is a fission bomb that exists and is like Hiroshima, in which case you can say goodbye to London.
Ministers, you've heard this claim that there's an atomic device out there. The police negotiator would like some advice from you. And ministers, you have a choice. Do you think that you should offer to release some prisoners or essentially refuse to do any deals?
What you must bear in mind, what they're actually asking for, they're asking for Indian troops to withdraw from Kashmir. They're
Which isn't something we can control.
They're asking for a referendum, I assume, of the people of Kashmir, whether they want to be Indian or Pakistani, and to release these prisoners. So the first two are things in the future. I think the most imminent thing we need to deal with now, are we going to release any of these prisoners?
Is it in our gift to release the prisoners?
It seems we do have 5 Kashmiri prisoners in British jails, and of course, therefore, it is within our remit, if you like, to release them.
So what's our policy? Our policy is not to release prisoners.
Our policy is to deal with this problem.
Well, absolutely, but bearing in mind, if these people are in custody and they are terrorists, then we could just be releasing them and put more people in danger.
Can I just ask for some advice? My every instinct says that we don't appease terrorism, because if you start appeasing terrorism by giving like that, then that's just kind of, you know, manna from heaven for the next person thinking about launching attack. Having said that, I'm aware that we might possibly have had precedent in this before.
It's a fact that in the past you have. Think about the IRA. There are no IRA people in prison now, and certainly not from the provisional IRA. They were released after their 2-year sentences. You really realise that was as a result of negotiation. This is a group with a political agenda, as you've identified. Maybe we can negotiate with these people. I'm not saying we should necessarily, I'm just saying it's something you should not throw away at the first opportunity.
I'm against that, because you're just inviting more and more of these situations.
The truth is, we don't do deals with terrorists, and we regret it when we do subsequently, because what we're doing is rewarding the terrorists. If you set them free, you are going to publicise the fact that at the first bit of pressure on the British government, you've done a deal with the terrorists.
It's too big a risk. We have to engage with these people.
Yes, but with all due respect, they haven't said that they won't release the bomb if we just do part 3 of their set of demands.
I understand that.
And as you've correctly pointed out, we're not in control of parts 1 and 2.
No, not
so
at all.
appeasing and compromising to give them part of the third one doesn't seem
At this
to me...
moment, no deals.
They'll know 1 and 2 are out
too
of our
early,
control.
till the negotiator builds up a dialogue. It's too early to do any deals. Refuse
Before
to
we
do
make
any
the decision,
deals.
because I fear it's going to go against me, I do feel strong about this. If we give nothing to the negotiators, we know they've told us there's a bomb, an atomic bomb out there. If we give nothing, what's to stop them making the situation worse in the short term?
Well, but equally, to say to that, what's to make you think that if we do give them that, they won't release the bomb anyway?
I think if we engage, they won't. That's my view.
No deals at this moment in time. No deals on releasing prisoners.
I think it's a big mistake. We've got to give them something.
If you give them something now, you will make this country rife for any terrorist group that wants to take a hostage situation. Once you start releasing prisoners in a hostage situation, it will happen not every blue moon, but regularly, on a regular occurrence.
Minister, are you still sticking with your view?
I think it would be very dangerous precedent if we release them.
Well, Ministers, one thing we don't have is very much time.
Before you make a decision, because you might vote against me, we've done it before. We've negotiated with terrorists before. We know that. This won't be setting a precedent, and it won't stop whatever we have to deal with in the future. Our efficient way of dealing with this case is the most active anti-terrorism job we can do. That's why I urge you to take this decision.
We released prisoners in Northern Ireland for issues of our own national security, that were matters that we were in control of. We are not in control of some of the demands these people are asking for. It's a separate issue.
Well, Ministers, can we agree on this? What's your view?
We must offer to release 2 of the
Must offer to release, Minister?
I personally have no confidence they won't go ahead and drop, blow their bomb up anyway.
Right.
And I'm uncomfortable with the precedent, so I would say no deals.
No deals. We don't release any prisoners.
All right, Ministers, we're not unanimous, but your decision will be enacted.
Refusing to do deals on prisoners is the right answer. Attempting to satisfy the terrorists' main demand regarding Kashmir is outside the Minister's control. So attempting to satisfy their lesser demand on prisoners, given that it may encourage future hostage-taking, is clearly a poor strategy. The Ministers have made their second correct decision. With the SAS still more than 20 minutes away, options at the hotel remain limited. And with the dramatic revelation about a nuclear threat to the UK, the Ministers' crisis is deepening. They're about to hear again from the terrorists.
We have decided to release the children, only if you put back on the power.
Azar, I'll ask about the power, but you will have to show some goodwill here and let them go first. Okay?
We agree to that.
How about releasing the mothers of the children too? They're not part of this, are they?
We will release 12 children and their mothers. All the other hostages will be put to death if our demands are not met.
Ministers, you're aware, of course, in all of this, you are still facing a deadline. And it's 30 minutes since the man inside the hotel was first in touch. And I think one thing that might be of interest to you is to look at a report which we've just picked up going out on one of the all-news channels.
We're getting reports that police wearing the sort of protective clothing they'd use to deal with a chemical or nuclear incident have sealed off an area next to Victoria Station. Very few details on this, but we understand from eyewitnesses that the bomb squad is at the scene. We'll bring you more as we get it.
Well, Ministers, that's clearly unexpected that news is out there.
Let's find out the background to the police ending up there dressed in chemical or nuclear kit. Have we got background information?
We have, Minister. What's happened is that, of course, following the receipt of the warning, police, not just in London but around the country, have been looking for anything suspicious. A patrol has spotted a white van abandoned in the Victoria area. As you know, there's Scotland Yard there, the Department of Trade and Industry, and therefore it's drawn attention to itself.
Ministers, not surprisingly, the press are desperate for information, for some kind of clarification as to the exact nature of the threat that London is facing. A very specific question is being put to the government, and that is, has the government received a specific threat of attack by nuclear device? And you who are running this have to give some response. Do you admit there is a nuclear threat? Do you deny there's a nuclear threat? Or do you refuse to comment? And you, as the ministers who are running this, have got to decide what to say to the public.
We're going to be asked. Specific threat of attack by
It's
atomic
easy.
device.
We lie or we don't lie. It's as simple as that. If we admit there has been a threat of a nuclear attack, which there has been, there'll be panic, absolute pandemonium in London.
Ministers, from my perspective, this is a serious public order matter rather than a PR matter, it seems to me. What we can't afford is to have people fleeing the city while we're trying to find this device. I don't often advise ministers to lie, but I think these are very strange circumstances.
Can we ask some advice on communications? I would be nervous about admitting a nuclear threat for the very good logistical reasons my colleagues just said, you know, the kind of pandemonium. Also, I'm not sure it's actually true. We don't yet know the nature of it. We know they've threatened there's a nuclear device.
Minister, with respect, I think that's just semantics. You have had a threat. and this is the way the media are suspicious, this is how they flush you out. And you've got to choose between whether or not you do what you said you do after the Bali bombing, which was adhere to an open government, or you go back on that and you lie to them.
If we say there has been a nuclear threat, I think the reaction is predictable. I do not think we should be lying to the public. And it may sound as if we're not being clear, but I think refuse to comment in itself is not lying, and I think at this stage we need to contain it as best we can.
Refusing to comment when they're obviously on the scent of something will just make them kind of hack away even more.
Let them.
It's counterintuitive to me to say lie, but equally there might be some very good reasons for doing those, and they might give us a resolution opportunity that we might deny ourselves if we do put panic out there. So I'm very torn.
What are you going to tell the press then?
I think at this stage we're still negotiating, and I think we refuse to comment at this stage.
The headline will be that there is a nuclear threat. I mean, that will be immediately interpreted as a threat.
That will be the headline.
I'm sorry.
You're satisfied about that?
I am satisfied, and it won't be the headline we have to wait for. It'll be immediately on the broadcast news. Refusing to comment would be taken as an admission of guilt. That's the way the media would operate.
Then we must deny.
I think if we deny, then obviously we're not telling the public the truth, but equally, I don't think we can in any way, shape or form admit to the public that there's been a nuclear threat. If we do, the panic could be severe and also impede the police looking for this alleged atomic device.
Ministers, we obviously need to take a decision. What do you think is the right thing to do?
It's very counterintuitive, but in this instance I would say deny. We'll very quickly come to more clarity on this.
And you do understand that is a lie?
I do understand it's a lie, but it's that, again, the concept of the lesser evil for the greater good. My concern right now is locating that device and identifying.
And Minister, I have to say to you that when all this is over and you are asked about your decision here, you're not lying about a trivial issue, you're lying about probably the biggest crisis facing this country in recent years, and on that you chose to lie. I'm just saying what will be asked of you and whether you've taken that on board.
In terms of what will be asked of me, in terms of reputation and career, I care less about that than I do about making the right decision at the moment. If we have public order chaos, that will.
All right, Minister, where do you
because
stand?
Because of public order, I would deny the threat at this stage.
You're going to go also, and I put it to you too,
Yeah,
you are aware you are lying.
Yes, absolutely, but it's for the safety of the public and the public welfare in general.
Minister?
Deny. I'm prepared to explain why we lie to the public. My concern is that when we deny, if this position gets worse, the public may not believe us in future down the line.
You are unanimous, and your decision will be enacted.
According to crisis management experts, denying the story is the wrong option. The ministers should have decided to admit the nuclear threat. The press clearly already have strong leads on this story, so the options of refusing to comment or denying are no longer possible strategies. The ministers have made their first mistake. While the bomb squad investigate the vehicle in Victoria, emergency services in Greater London remain on high alert and continue to scour the entire city for possible nuclear devices. Back at the hotel, with less than 15 minutes until the deadline, there is a positive development.
It looks like something's happening here. I hope you're getting the pictures. The group of hostages is being freed. I can see women and children on their way out. It looks as if it could be 12 children and about 7 adults, all women. They're making their way down here towards the police lines.
I found it extremely moving. That image will go out to the British public, and I hope that will assist in the public having faith in that we're doing our best.
All right, Minister, I've got some information for you. You know about the van down at Victoria, which the media picked up on. We have a bomb disposal commander who's at the scene, and I'd like you to listen to him.
No luck with this bomb, I'm afraid. We've ran X-rays, Geiger counters over the whole of the van. We couldn't find anything at all suspicious. One of my guys has forced entry and basically just a van full of stationery. So back to square one, I'm afraid.
I'd like to know where the army is now. Where are
The army has arrived, Minister. We have the SAS there. They've got to get all their stuff unloaded, but the commander is at the moment getting a brief from both the police and the negotiator on the situation, what the likely outcomes are, which will allow you to make a judgment.
Ministers, what I can tell you is I think it's about, it is 12 minutes now to this deadline, and we can take you over to the negotiating team right now.
You may not take us seriously, but if you are not willing to deal with us, then you will be responsible for the first death.
Azar, we are doing everything we can at this end. How can hurting one of these people help your cause?
You have very little time left. We know you are speaking to the Indians. We want answers.
But I'm being told we're still in discussions with the Indian government. Believe me, we're going as quickly as we can, Azar.
Ministers, the important thing is what advice you want to give to the negotiating team. And really the options are this. Do you want the negotiating team to continue to stall? Do you want them to claim that India might comply, or do you want to order in the SAS?
Tim, how long is it until they can feasibly launch an operational assault?
They're doing the planning at the moment and haven't got a timescale, but I assume it will be within 1 hour. It might be faster than that if they get a good recce done.
Charles, in terms of continuing to stall, are there any downsides to that? Is there a chance that will increase the risk to the 100 hostages left there?
Well, the downside, Minister, is, of course, is that they've threatened to kill people, and presumably that will be, coincidental with the actual deadlines.
Ministers, this guy said he's going to shoot someone. The deadline's up in, 7.5 minutes now. So what happens if they do actually shoot? And what if they shoot a person every 5 minutes?
There will be escalating
I mean, we have absolutely no idea what's going on. We've got the SAS there. For God's sake, that's what we train them for.
But we don't actually have the SAS there and ready to act.
Well, they say they're not. They say they're not completely ready. My last point here is that you've seen those fantastic images of the children and the mothers being released. At the moment, you are seen as being in control of this crisis. You let the deadline go and people can start getting shot, you've lost control.
Fine, then what we need to do is we continue to stall. Irrespective of what we're being advised, we continue to stall.
You're discounting the thought that you might buy a bit more time by claiming that we're on message with India. We lied to the British public. I mean, to be honest, lying to the terrorists to buy a bit more time to get the SAS ready seems to me not too bad an option.
Are we seriously going to say to these terrorists that India is going to withdraw from Kashmir?
No,
of course
I never said that.
Yeah.
If we lie to those people, they'll know within seconds that we're
Exactly,
lying.
that's my issue with it. It's not that I have a moral issue about not lying to terrorists. It's just it seems a really pointless thing to do because within 2 minutes of tuning into CNN, they'll know it's not true. We can't order an SAS assault. We don't know we absolutely need to. There isn't a clear and present danger right now. People aren't being shot. Secondly, they're not ready to go. I think to claim India will comply is just lunacy because we know they won't and we know the terrorists will know that immediately and that might just make them angrier. I think we also have to, if we presume they were serious and there is a serious atomic threat...
They are deadly serious.
The 100 hostages there, regrettable though the loss of their lives might be tiny compared to the greater issues we're looking at. So my concern is controlling the situation for the greater good rather than just the management of those hostages in that building.
In the meantime, we need to hurry up with the army side of things, and we've got to be ready to assault. If they start shooting hostages, then we must storm the building. But we need to stall at this moment in time to buy time.
Yeah, because we're not in a position to launch the assault that would free the hostages anyway.
Minister, what do you think is the right decision to take here?
I think we continue to stall.
You're convinced by that?
I'm convinced by that.
What do you think?
Stall.
All right, Ministers, your decision will be enacted, and we'll wait to see what happens as the deadline approaches.
I fear that there might be consequence to that, but the other two weren't realistic options.
No.
It's always easy with the prism of hindsight to say we should have done that differently, but on the decisions that we have available to us now, I think that's the only really viable one.
Well, let's see how things develop.
I think the deadline is pretty much with us, and we can see what's happening at the hotel.
Well, it's all very quiet here. We're just counting down to this deadline now. I'll make it 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. Okay, there's nothing yet. We'll keep you informed if anything happens.
According to experts, stalling is the best option. When conducted by skilled negotiators, stalling can be a very effective way of gaining valuable time. So far, the ministers have made good judgments on 3 out of 4 occasions. The deadline has passed without incident, but 150 hostages remain trapped in the hotel, and London still lies under the threat of nuclear blackmail. The ministers are about to hear again from the terrorists.
We have decided to give you one last chance.
How is everyone doing in there?
Do not waste this opportunity. You now have 1 more hour to comply with our demands. But I warn you, no more chances.
Okay, I'll pass that on.
I just think there are some important things for us to deduce from that. One is they're obviously pliable, if you like, to negotiation, because they've now shifted their stance on a couple of occasions. The second thing is we now have enough time in hand to get that assault unit completely operational. So if they do start shooting people, we can go in immediately. And I just think those are important things for us to bear in mind while we make our next decision.
Ministers, where do we stand at the moment? We have this threat of a nuclear device. We know upward of 150 people are still in the hotel. That's where we stand at the moment, and we've just heard from the gunman. What I'd like to link you to is the Gold Commander, the officer who is in charge of all police operations in London.
We've succeeded in arresting 17 known Kashmiri sympathizers believed to have a connection to this operation, but they won't give out information easily. In my experience, this could take days or even weeks, time we just don't have. Also, our colleagues in India have been in contact. They've arrested 6 British Kashmiris, also believed to be connected. We're not sure what methods they'll use for questioning, or if you want us to give them guidelines.
Ministers, the issue here is you don't have a great deal of time, and you've got to decide really what to do with these prisoners, and the police are wanting to hear from you as to how to interrogate them. And the question is really this: do you interrogate them according to British law? Do you sanction extreme methods for those being held in India? Do you sanction extreme methods for those being held here in the UK? And I hope you understand what we mean by extreme methods. Are you clear on that?
We mean torture.
Why do we think our normal methods of interrogation are that much worse?
Well, the situation's this, Minister, that, of course, as you're aware, under the terrorism legislation, these people can be held for 2 weeks. It's quite ordinary, quite normally the case that they will say nothing during that whole period. People do talk under torture, and if they're the right people, you might get the right information. I'm not advocating this myself, but it's an option that has been put in your hands, and you may want to consider it.
Do we really seriously think that even if we use extreme methods, we're going to get precise enough information as to where this bomb is, whether it actually exists?
If you've got the right people, it's possible. And if one of those people were to give information, you might, under these circumstances, consider it worth it.
You have no other information. I mean, this is the only lead that you've had so far.
I agree with you, and I don't think we can dismiss it.
Post-September 11, the mood has changed. I don't need to tell you that. And it may go down very badly in the wine bars of Islington, but I can promise you the majority of this country would applaud. Get them in and get the information out of them.
I'm in no doubt that governments make dirty decisions, inverted commas, frequently. So broadly, we have 2 decisions. One is to kind of stick by the face of the law and pussyfoot around. And the second is to take an opportunity we may have to get some information. I don't think that does justice
to the debate of number 1. It's far bigger repercussions. If we don't do our duties here according to some limits of human rights.
Our duties are to the British public.
To the British rule of law and to the British way of doing things. And I think if you've got to assess the advantages that we'll get. At the moment, we have associated people with Kashmiris. If it was a direct person that we knew had information about this bomb, I'd be much more proactive about this. I think we've got some sympathisers, no information about how specific their information is, and you are undermining a fundamental right not to be tortured. I think that's absolutely fundamental. And I'm not for this just saying because of some willy-nilly Islington conversations. I'm sorry, it just doesn't persuade me.
But Charles has made 2 points that actually support the torture thing. The first is, these people will have been picked up with intelligence, so we have to presume there could be a nugget in there coming our way. The second thing that we have to understand is we're not setting precedent by doing this. It goes on all the time. There is dirty work attached to government.
I'm not aware of the British authorities directly sanctioning torture within the British Isles, let alone of British subjects abroad, by a foreign government. I'm not aware of any precedent.
Well, you wouldn't be, would you?
Do you make a distinction between sanctioning extreme methods in India and sanctioning extreme methods in the UK, or are you dismissing them both?
They're British subjects. I am not prepared to sanction it.
So we let these 150 hostages die, possibly.
That's
we
not
have
what,
a dirty
that's
bomb
not
in the middle
necessarily
of
what will
London
happen.
or a big city because you're frightened of extracting information out of these
I think that's unnecessarily alarmist at this
and you
stage.
don't know they're just sympathisers. They've not been picked up.
I don't know.
Unless they have some role to play within the inner sanctum here.
Right.
And there's a pretty good idea that they know something about it. I think we've got to do it.
I just need to be clear on your objections. Let me be clear about this. Are you objecting to it because the notion of torture itself is abhorrent to you, doesn't fit in international law, or is it because these are British subjects?
Oh, no, the reason I'm objecting to it is I think given what we might get now, I'm not convinced that we'll get the results for this gross a breach of fundamental human rights.
So we fight these terrorists with our one arm behind our back. They've already shot someone.
We can't descend to the gutter.
And it's not a matter of descending to the gutter.
Well, sometimes you find yourself fighting the gutter against your will.
Throughout this whole crisis, I'm pragmatic. But I think we've got to maintain some dignity, even in the face of this adversity. And if we don't, we give away everything we stand for.
Potentially, we have 100 people who are about to be killed and a nuclear device about to go off. Ask me where my morals sit.
But
I would happily torture the 17.
No, but hold on. These are sympathisers. We all know about intelligence. We know about what happened with Al-Qaeda. The intelligence, we have to assess the information. Sympathisers mean sympathisers. It doesn't mean they know where a nuclear bomb is going to go off in a terrorist...
If you knew they were activists as opposed to sympathisers, would your decision be different?
If I knew that they could tell us where there was a nuclear bomb, I wouldn't hesitate in authorising it. I will not sanction it in these circumstances.
I sanction it. I would do it if it's for the greater good.
So what is it to be, Minister?
I am genuinely torn on this because there seems to me to be no clear answer.
And being a minister is about taking a choice. We have a situation here, you're running the country, we're in a crisis, there are 17 people being held here, some in India. At the moment, you are divided, you're running the country, the clock's ticking.
OK, guys, persuade me. I'm the one who can't make up my mind, genuinely, not for a lack of decisiveness, but because I think there are arguments on both sides.
Of course. I think we need to do everything within our power to extract as much information as we possibly can. And if it means taking extreme measures against known activists, known sympathisers for the good of the British public, then I would do it. Okay. You must do it.
It's easy to overreact. We've been told about a possible nuclear threat. I do not believe that London is going to be under nuclear attack in the next hour. We have to deal with the hostage situation, I accept. I do not think that there's sufficient evidence available to us that we'll get results by breaching a fundamental, absolutely fundamental right.
Ministers, I don't want to hurry you, but at the moment you're divided. I need a decision.
I am persuaded by Raz, reluctantly. My instinct is to do everything we can to find out that information, but I'm not sure how much we will affect what we're doing here now, so reluctantly I will go with your decision.
Minister, we have to take a decision. You have decided that the people who are being held will be interrogated by British law. Minister, that decision will be enacted.
The ministers made the right decision. The British government is a signatory to the Geneva Convention on the Treatment of Prisoners, which prohibits the use of torture in any circumstances. So far in this crisis, the ministers have made only one bad decision. With less than 20 minutes until the second deadline, a new message has been received from the terrorists with crucial information about the bomb.
The device is in a vehicle parked on Jamaica Dock in the Canary Wharf area, and it has been primed. We have heard nothing of any worth about our demands. We are preparing to start the executions as and when we promised.
Obviously, we'll be sending police to the scene immediately to check that out.
To Canary Wharf, yes.
Absolutely, yes, Mr.
Now, we can actually, maybe for the first time, link you up to the SAS commander who's directly at the hotel.
It looks like most of the captives are being kept in the large conference room at the rear of the building on the first floor. My team are in the building next door, rigging explosives to blow through the weak corridor wall. It's going to be the fastest way in. As regards survivors, I'm confident we can save 50% of the captives. I'll keep you updated.
Ministers, you're getting a feed out from the SAS headquarters there, Minister. You can see that you've got the hostages all in one room, surrounded by hostage takers. You've got the estimate of 50% casualties. That will be an upper limit. The SAS commander will normally give you what his worst case is. So he's confident he can get in there and save, let's look at it the other way around, save half the people.
Can we deduce anything from the fact that they've kept all the hostages in one place?
Well, it might be that they've, with their limited numbers, that's the best way of securing them. It might be that that's the best way of killing them.
It looks like that just could be a really horrible numbers game. If they start shooting and they shoot one every 5 minutes, and we just might get to a very crude equation.
Ministers, there may be something of a breakthrough going on down at Jamaica Dock in Canary Wharf. And I can link you to the bomb disposal commander who's there.
We now know we've got the bomb. The Geiger counters are registering very high readings. Probably looking at cesium-137. It's attached to an unusual-looking device with a large amount of explosives. It's what's called a dirty bomb. If this thing goes up, there's going to be a cloud of radioactive dust, anything up to a mile in radius, and with the wind, well, it could go anywhere. Now, I've got a man who's willing to go in and have a crack at defusing it, but it's how you want us to proceed.
Ministers, I don't need to tell you this is a potentially extremely dangerous situation. You have got some people who are in the process of being evacuated. What the bomb disposal commander wants to know, a simple but hugely important question. Does he send in someone to try and defuse this bomb, or does he wait until the whole area has been evacuated?
Charles, can I just ask you, in terms of evacuation, if we're looking at the maps that are showing us the cloud path, realistically, how do you evacuate a moving feast like that?
Well, contingency plans are in place for this kind of incident, but of course you'll be aware that it's one thing to have contingency plans, quite another to put them into action. We're looking at about 40 to 50,000 people in this area. It's going to take at least an hour to get these people evacuated.
So within that hour, they could detonate this bomb?
Well, the bomb could be detonated at any time.
Let's just get some more information. Can you properly defuse a dirty bomb?
First of all, Minister, the bomb disposal is actually no different from any other bomb disposal. It's just that the risks, if it goes wrong, are higher.
Can you quantify the chance of success of defusing it? I know there are no guarantees, but based on what you know...
There will be anti-handling devices almost certainly. It may be booby-trapped. There may be, of course, people looking to see us go in.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing which will set it off. Yeah. But on the other hand, we've got to get in there if we want to get this thing defused and get control of the situation.
I think we need to go and try and defuse the bomb.
And we've got 6 minutes, I'm hearing, from this deadline, which they've set.
I'm all for trying to endeavour to go and defuse that bomb. It can go off at any time, and the effects could be catastrophic.
Let's just summarise. At the moment, we're not faced with a deadline for the bomb. At the moment, the deadline we face is they're going to start executing. That's what they've told us. They've already extended that deadline once. If we go in and defuse the bomb, there is a risk that that bomb will go off. The consequences of a dirty bomb going off in London without an evacuation would be catastrophic. So what we've got to decide, actually, is whether we'll wait and evacuate and not put those people's lives at risk when there isn't an imminent threat of these people blowing up that bomb.
Whatever you do, that bomb is a threat. Even if they evacuate the immediate vicinity, with the fallout, there will be deaths at a later stage.
Not if we evacuate.
Yes, through cancer, the downwind
can I
effect.
just interject?
I think we need to diffuse.
We are not linking our issues properly here. If we just stand back a moment, if you look at the sequence of things, in 6 minutes, it's possible they will start executing people. If they do that, it's entirely possible. The only legitimate response we've got, the only moral response, is to order the SAS in. At that point, they may take their decision to trigger it. So that's the timescale we need to bear in mind when we make a decision about defuse or evacuate.
No, the timescale is the evacuation. How long will it take to evacuate? We don't have to go in immediately they've executed someone.
No, I think you're missing the point. The point is that if they start shooting the hostages and we decide to send in the SAS, at that point they could then trigger the bomb when we're through, you know, in the process of evacuating the people.
But we decide when the SAS go in.
What? They shoot all the hostages first. What we're saying, in 6 minutes' time, they're going to shoot the fastest.
They might shoot.
They might.
I understand that, but I'm suggesting to you we don't need to send the SAS immediately. They've executed the first person.
Clarify.
Oh, just wait till they've done 100
please be very clear with this. Our time is running out. I thought that the premise we were operating on was we would keep the SAS thing kind of up our sleeves, if you like, until the point we had to, because there was a clear and present danger.
Yes.
I think that clear and present danger will be when they start shooting people. Are you saying your view is different?
Yeah, the clear and present danger is when the SAS go in. That's the moment they'll seriously contemplate setting off the bomb, in my view.
How many people would you let be executed before we send that assault team in?
Tough decision.
So you're prepared to let them start shooting the hostages and we stand back?
That's just the wrong way of putting it. It's not my gift.
Well,
if they're going to choose to assassinate people, we have to deal with that problem. And you're prepared to take the risk. You're prepared to take a risk of a nuclear bomb going off now when you have a choice not to even take that risk.
But we don't have that choice.
You do.
We don't. We won't stand back and let those hostages be executed systematically without sending the SAS in. If we send the SAS in, we have to presume that that man will detonate the bomb. So I don't believe that the option to us of the luxury of evacuating 40 to 50,000 people exists. So I think we have to defuse it.
That definitely exists. The option exists because it could take 3 or 4 hours before they execute people. You know, in any fine, they might execute 1 or 2, but I believe we have that option, and we must make the decision knowing we have that option.
So, Ministers, what is to be decided here? I mean, this is critical. This is actually about leadership.
One word.
And it so happens
one word.
You are leading the country at the moment.
One sentence. I believe the terrorists would escalate before letting off the bomb. Therefore, I say wait for evacuation.
I would defuse the bomb now.
I wouldn't attempt a diffusion because I'm not confident that we can rely on the terrorists to not escalate pretty quickly.
You're not agreed, but you have taken a decision, and it will be enacted.
While they wait to hear whether the bomb defusal has been successful, the situation in the hotel has now become critical. The extra time the ministers took to make their last decision has meant that the terrorist deadline is upon them.
We need to think about the next situation we're going to be faced with.
The bomb's gone off.
Well, the bomb won't go off. The bomb will be defused.
Ministers, the deadline is up.
I don't know if you heard that. A shot's been fired in the hotel. We'll find out what happened and get right back to you.
That confirms everything we suspected. They're serious.
Yeah, that doesn't... unfortunately, that doesn't surprise me.
I think we can take you to the negotiating team down at the hotel who might be able to shed some light on what happened, and we may be able to link directly, actually, to the gunman.
We have only done what we promised to do. We have stuck to our part of the deal.
Do not shoot anyone else. This cannot help you achieve your goal.
Our goal is to make a change. That is what we are achieving.
He has shot a hostage,
And
yes?
we can deduce from that they did shoot someone.
Yeah.
That wasn't an empty shot. We now know that.
Yes, that's right, Ministers. A hostage does appear to have been shot.
Right.
OK.
Ministers, the negotiating team have been on to me, and this is a decision for you. If the gunman comes on again, does the negotiator say, or try to continue negotiation, or at this stage, would you like the SAS to go in?
I'd like him to continue negotiation at this stage, purely and simply until we defuse that bomb. And once that bomb's defused, then it's a whole different scenario. Then we decide whether the SAS goes in or not.
Did we have a reference point for how long it would take to defuse that bomb, assuming it went successfully?
If there are no devices around, it could be a matter of minutes, could be a matter of hours. There have been World War II bombs that take days. So I just can't tell you. As soon as I get something back from them, I will let you know.
What we need to be clear on is what our response is going to be if they carry on killing people.
We send the SAS in now, he'll detonate that bomb.
Without the bomb, I have absolutely no problem with the SAS going in.
Sorry to keep bombarding you with this information, but another shot has been heard at the hotel.
And what was the time lapse between the two shootings? I'm wondering if we can project forward.
About 5 or 6 minutes.
About 5 or 6 minutes.
It's very clear that the situation in there is escalating.
We've got no news about the bomb.
No, I'm afraid not, Minister. I will bring it as soon as I have.
OK.
Ministers, we can go live immediately now to the hotel.
Covert surveillance are telling us that the gunmen have singled out several people and taken them upstairs, we think to be executed. There's a lot of noise and it's not clear, but there's definitely dissent among the gunmen.
The SAS are absolutely ready. The moment you say go, they will go, Ministers. If they're beginning to fight amongst themselves inside, that will make it easier for the SAS.
Yes. Yes.
Just to confirm, Ministers, again, somebody does appear to have been shot. I'm afraid, Minister, it's another hostage.
I think it's very clear. We can see that they are killing people. We can presume they will probably continue to kill people. This is increasingly difficult.
Absolutely.
Ministers, I've just heard the bomb has been defused. It is now safe.
Minister, just to interrupt you, I have the negotiator on the line as well.
It seems that part of the group are demanding to know what would happen if they were to consider the possibility of surrender.
There's so much information we don't have. We don't know which part of the group, whether they're in control.
Well, we do have a certain amount of information, Ministers, because, of course, we have some technical coverage of the target. There's a lot of shouting, a lot of noise coming out of there. Surrender is a word that's coming up quite a bit.
Part of the group. That would suggest that even if we gave them some information that would appease that part of the group, we'd still have part that might carry on executing. We were unequivocal that in the absence of the bomb, we would send them in. And I say still send them. The fact they're prepared to negotiate now, that's no guarantee of anything. I say send in.
Send in the SAS.
I agree.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I agree.
Yes.
Ministers, you've taken the decision, I think.
Yes.
You're unanimous in this. Ministers, your decision will be enacted. And the SAS will go in as soon as possible.
The SAS assault is now underway. And the ministers can do nothing but wait.
Their worst-case scenario was a 50% survival rate, but it's possible it will be upwards of that.
Hope for the best.
They were killing at an escalating rate, so we have to presume that would have continued.
And hopefully the ones that want to surrender won't start killing hostages. So.
Ministers, I'm hearing that the SAS assault has come to an end, and I think we can link you directly to the hotel.
Well, we know for some people we made the right decision. The issue now is what are the statistics on who got out and who didn't.
I've got the early reports on how it went. We've got 50 confirmed dead among the hostages. A lot of the rest are pretty severely injured and will be taken to hospital. All the hostage takers were killed.
$50 dead.
The rest badly injured. Well, many of the rest.
But I'm not sure that we could have stood back and let them carry on picking people off, especially if they were becoming divided.
No, exactly.
It's and it is unfortunate. There are no easy answers.
Well, we all have to pay the price for terrorism, I guess.
Ministers, you have just taken your last decision, and you're no longer in charge of the country.
In their final minutes, the ministers made one right and one wrong decision. To defuse the bomb was the right choice. In this situation, where the terrorists are setting threatening deadlines and are behaving unpredictably, the priority must be to take control of the bomb as soon as possible. With the bomb defused and the hostage takers willing to talk about surrender, sending in the SAS was the wrong decision. Historically, 75% of hostage casualties occur during rescue missions. Over the last hour, the ministers have been tested to the limit. They got right 5 out of 7 decisions they were asked to make. Crucially, they saved London from the consequences of a dirty bomb explosion. This could have led to a loss of business confidence in the city as a financial centre, crippling the UK economy. But by assaulting the hotel, they have managed to cause the deaths of almost half the hostages they were attempting to save.
Ministers, you have had advisors, and they've been watching how you've performed today.
Ministers, it's true you did take a very analytical approach to your decision-making. When it came to your final decision, all of that was suddenly abandoned. You'd already decided that you would send in the SAS, and that was despite the fact that you had key new information emerging that the hostage takers may have been considering surrender. Had you given that information at least the same amount of weight as you'd given information in all your previous decisions, more hostages would have survived.
Ministers, integrity played a great part in your decision-making today, except for when it came to telling the British public the truth. The big lie over the nuclear threat was really quite unforgivable. It was a mistake, because the British people would have found out sooner or later, with pretty disastrous repercussions on all of your careers, I'm afraid, as ministers.
Ministers, from my perspective, you were an impressive set of decision makers. You took all the information that was coming in. You accepted that we couldn't give you a complete picture all the time. It was a shame, given that you couldn't always come to an agreement. But we got on with it and we saved London.
Ministers, during your period in power, when you were in charge of the country, you did have to cope with quite catastrophic and unusual events. A London hotel taken over by gunmen, the threat of an atomic device being exploded somewhere in the capital, and whether to send in the SAS. Huge and difficult decisions. Let's hope that no ministers ever have to take similar decisions for real. And ministers, you are now free to leave the Crisis Command Centre.
Running the country in a crisis is not something I would particularly like to do again.
I actually don't think I could have made the decisions any better if I was on my own.
I felt that probably they were a bit more analytical than I was.
I think it's crucial to analyse a decision before you go running in.
I seemed to weigh up the situation quicker, but they wanted to talk it through.
Just because someone's view is different to yours doesn't make it wrong. It just means it's your job to persuade them they're wrong.
I think I'll be as good minister as anybody else, really.
Could I run the country? Probably as qualified as anybody else to do it.
Could I run the country? No.